Anti-vaxxers are worse than flat earthers. What's up everybody, it's Hunter Avalone here and welcome to a brand new video. Now try and avoid getting your polio panties in a wad because today I'm calling out anti-vaxxers. There are few people more appalling than parents who refuse to vaccinate their children. There are few people more appalling than parents who choose to ignore the mountains of scientific data showing that vaccines are perfectly safe. There are few people more appalling than parents who buy into these bogus conspiracy theories about vaccines. Whoops, sorry Timmy, you got the Black Plague, but hey, at least you don't have autism. Refusing to vaccinate your child is child abuse. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anti-vaxxers constantly put feelings over facts, and in doing so, they risk the lives and the health of their own children and other kids. Just this year, there was a measles outbreak in New York with over 200 people contracting the disease. So far, nearly every child who has gotten sick has been unvaccinated. Well, thanks a lot, anti-vaxxers. The measles were almost eradicated, but nope.
It's rewind time.
A major global study found people in higher income countries were among the least confident in vaccine safety. So the further people are from the outbreaks and the more distant the memory of diseases like whooping cough and measles, the more likely they are to shun vaccines. Aside from being brain-dead Neanderthals, anti-vaxxers seem to refuse vaccines because 1, they believe lies and myths about vaccines, which we will debunk in this video, or 2, they refuse vaccines claiming it's some kind of BS libertarian issue. Both reasons are stupid, so let's go through both reasons and expose why. First, the myths. Anti-vaxxers are perfect examples of people who put feelings over facts. So caught up in vaccine hesitancy, they ignore health organizations, doctors, and scientists who all agree that vaccines are safe. One of the biggest lies told by anti-vaxxers is that vaccines are not necessary because the risk of getting one of these preventable diseases is minuscule. This belief also lines up perfectly with the study I mentioned previously. However, preventable disease rates have only dropped because vaccines are so common now. In fact, before a vaccine was invented, 400 children died every year in the US due to measles. Today, the only recorded measles death was a woman who died in 2015 due to a compromised immune system, making it impossible for her to receive the vaccination. Since 2000, measles vaccine campaigns around the world have contributed to an 87% decrease in reported measles incidents and an 84% reductions in estimated measles mortality and prevented 20.4 million deaths, the CDC reported in 2017. Another very common myth that I'm sure you've all heard before is that vaccines can cause autism. Ironically enough, it's the idiots who peddle this myth that appear to have mental health issues. This myth came from a study done in the early 90s by a doctor named Andrew Wakefield. This study claimed that vaccines increase a child's risk of developing autism. Also keep in mind that this study was done with only 12 children, but it's still become a major talking point for anti-vaxxers everywhere. According to Business Insider, Wakefield's research on autism and vaccines has been discredited. His main paper on the subject has been retracted, and other studies examining nearly 100,000 kids has found no link between autism and vaccines. This is complete bogus nonsense, and anyone who still believes that vaccines cause autism should just go back to living in the Stone Ages. The next anti-vaxxer lie is that vaccines contain harmful toxins such as mercury. Some mercury is used as a preservative in flu vaccines, which may be the source of the confusion, but even so, it's not a dangerous ingredient and it isn't in single-use vials. According to Medical News Today, although it's true that some vaccines contain harmful substances in large amounts, The body already has exposure to these substances from various foods and through other products. The quantities of these substances in vaccines are so low, they cause no harm to the body. Another really big lie that anti-vaxxers peddle is that children have died from vaccines, specifically the measles vaccine. For this flawed argument, anti-vaxxers often point to a federal database maintained by the CDC. However, the database makes clear that a report of a death after a vaccine administration doesn't necessarily mean the vaccine is what caused the death. What's more, there's a wealth of evidence from decades of vaccine administration around the world that otherwise healthy children and adults who get a measles vaccine don't die from it. The only people who have died from vaccines are people who were severely allergic to the medicine. This is no different than if I claimed, since some people are allergic to cold medicine kills children. Finally, anti-vaxxers wrongly assert that vaccines can cause seizures. It's actually the opposite. Fevers can cause seizures, and more measles means more fever. So what have we learned so far? Well, anti-vaxxers are either too stupid to do a simple Google search, or they're willfully choosing ignorance and to risk the lives of their own children and others. Parents choosing not to vaccinate their kids is completely selfish. First, you're harming your own kid's health because you listen to too much Alex Jones. Secondly, you're risking the health of other children as well. Some anti-vaxxers are so dedicated to their flawed beliefs, they choose vaccine exemptions for their children. The legality of these exemptions vary from state to state, but in Texas, you can get a vaccine exemption for pretty much any reason. This puts other kids at risk, however. Some children are unable to get vaccinated because their immune systems are too vulnerable. There's a thing called herd immunity. Herd immunity is a form of indirect protection from infectious diseases that occur when a large percentage of a population has become immune to an infection, thereby providing a measure of protection for individuals who are not immune. When selfish parents choose a vaccine exemption and then send their children to school, they risk infecting other children who simply cannot get a vaccine because their immune system is too weak. This throws off the herd immunity in schools, leaving the already susceptible children even more vulnerable to disease. And now, a moment of truth with Hunter Avalone. Hello. If you've made it this far into the video, you either completely agree with everything I'm saying, or you're an anti-vaxxer, burning with rage, so hot you might have a fever from the measles. Refusing to vaccinate your child is child abuse. According to the Book of Truth, page 69, verse 420, risking your child's life because you ignore facts is a gross act of negligence that should result in Child Protective Services rescuing your children from their inevitable contraction of the Spanish flu. Anti-vaxxer parents, I know you want your child to graduate high school, but you clearly didn't, and they won't either, because they'll probably die before the age of 12. Thank you and have a good day. The second pathetic reason parents refuse vaccines for their kids is because of some kind of BS libertarian claim. Meet Stacy Meth. She's an anti-vaccine activist who's refused to vaccinate her son for years.
This one is one of the first ones that I actually went and researched, and it talks about the role of the federal government. But it doesn't give them the right to mandate vaccines. We have a right on this planet to choose for our own bodies what we take in. And it should be the same way with a shot or treatment.
First of all, you're choosing for your son's body. You're not choosing for your own body, so already this makes no sense. Secondly, the government does not mandate vaccines. Certain vaccines are only mandated if your child is attending public school, which seems fair and reasonable to me. After all, public school is government funded, so it makes sense that the government would enact certain mandates to protect the students attending public school. This is not a libertarian issue any more than the government mandating you wear a seatbelt or educate your child. You can choose to be vaccinated or not in this country, but you cannot choose to risk the lives and health of others because of your BS beliefs.
In Texas, non-medical or conscientious exemptions from vaccines can be granted for any personal reason, including religion.
which is super dumb, by the way. Religious freedom is important and it should be honored in this country, but the moment you start risking your child's life or the lives of other children under the guise of religion, you're an idiot.
Stacy is studying to be a nurse. She claims that 2 of her grandchildren were injured after getting vaccinated.
Yeah, guys, you heard that correctly. This anti-vaxxer wants to be a nurse. I'm sorry, but I would rather have an ISIS executioner perform surgery on me before I even let this woman come close. So she claims she's against vaccines after her grandchildren were injured from vaccines. Again, this doesn't make any sense, and to base your entire activism on some flimsy anecdotal evidence, all while ignoring the mountains of scientific data that says otherwise, is totally pathetic and a clear depiction of a person valuing feelings over facts.
It's hard for me.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to think of a future where other children would lose their rights and continue to be injured when none of us knows why.
Do you think that's a possibility?
More feelings and emotions? I'm shocked! You don't have to worry about your kids losing their rights if they're dead. This woman clearly has no clue what she's talking about. She keeps bringing up kids being injured from vaccines, which we all know is not the case outside of her own little anecdotal bubble, yet she also admits that she doesn't really know the reason why, so I'm just completely confused. Maybe vaccines do cause autism, and this woman has been pumped full of them. Or maybe, just maybe, she has no clue what she's actually talking about, and she's trying to justify this grotesque irresponsibility by claiming it's some kind of libertarian issue when that's not the case. Again, vaccines are only mandated if your child is going to public school. How can you claim the government shouldn't be involved when at the same time you're sending your child to a government-funded school? All in all, anti-vaxxers are some of the dumbest people who walk this flat earth. It's really quite disgusting that this vocal minority has managed to set their kids back to the point that cutting their finger on a rusty gate is a death sentence. Anti-vaxxers need to quit ignoring science, stop prioritizing their feelings, and wake up. Anti-vaxxers, it's time to stop.